Hello and welcome back, adventurers. This is Captain TTRPG, and today we're talking about Pathfinder 2nd Edition.
The sound of thick iron chains rhythmically striking stone fills the stagnant air as a sturdy dwarf, bound and gagged, is shoved into a large, cold, emotionless room. A smile crosses the face of the goblin captain as she loudly exclaims what is to become of the bound offender. Yet he remains calm, still stoic. As the underlings prepare to drag the dwarf to his iron and stone coffin, shouting can be heard from floors above. The ruckus compels not just guards, but the captain as well, to take up arms and respond with haste. As they direct themselves toward the commotion, their own room erupts with sounds of violent rage and crushing of bone. As the captain peers over the shoulder of her subordinate, she finds the once non-threatening prisoner, now over twice his size, his massive form bearing down upon them as he releases the lifeless corpse of his first victim. With reckless abandon, the massive brute lays waste to the remaining legion, wielding any object capable of breaking bone. Fingernails upon stone as the final sound of note as rage subsides and the dwarf moves on to join his allies above. Welcome back, adventurers. Today we are diving into the Barbarian class. That's right, we're getting to the strength-based brute of all of our Pathfinder2e classes. These are powerful, maybe not large, but powerful beings that like to wield large weapons or just their bare fists in order to deal as much damage as possible. Barbarians are martial characters, no surprise there. Their feats are focused on dealing damage, controlling enemies, sometimes even utility, and incorporating fear into combat. The different subclasses provide you with different play styles rather than just different actions that play the same way. So if you're looking for more of a controller, if you're looking for more AoE damage, if you're looking to take up a larger part on the battlefield, there are different subclasses that will get you what you're looking for. As far as weapon styles to play with, the Barbarian does have options. Maybe not every option in the world like the Fighter, but still a good number of options. You can easily do a big two-handed weapon, which is probably what most of us think about when we think about a Barbarian. You can dual wield melee weapons, not necessarily agile or finesse weapons, just big strength-based weapons. You can do sword and board if you want more of a defensive line. That's easily a way you can play here. Unarmed grapple builds are amazing for barbarians. And you can even lean into throwing weapons. It'll be a little harder, but there's feats to help you get there. Primary ability score is strength, which is probably no surprise. You gain the most hit points of any class at 12 per level. You are trained in light, medium, and unarmored, so you can throw in some nice big medium if you don't want a lot of dex, or if you're going to go higher dex, maybe you can go with lighter armor. And you are, of course, trained in martial weapons as well as basic weapons. The primary feature of Barbarians, however, is Rage. Rage is a status that you enter. It's a condition of sorts, and it grants you buffs to your melee damage. The buff isn't quite as good if you use agile weapons, but still, you get a good buff. And you can't use finesse weapons with it. The damage starts as a +2 without any subclass. Don't worry, we'll get into how subclasses play with this a little bit later. To enter Rage, you must normally use one action, unless you just rolled initiative. If you just rolled initiative, when you roll it, you can go into a Rage for free, thanks to your Quick Tempered ability, which is new with the remaster. When you go into Rage the first time in combat, you gain temporary hit points equal to your level plus your Constitution modifier. In my experience, players tend to forget that they get these temp HP, so GMs out there, try to help remind them. Your rage ends if you are at any point unconscious, if it's been a minute, or combat ends. Well, when it ends, you lose any remaining hit points. Even though you can still rage again, you can't gain those temporary hit points more than once per minute. So even if you have to rage again in the middle of combat because you were unconscious, just keep in mind that you're not going to get the temp HP again. The bonuses you gain from your subclass, or instinct, work only while you are raging, as do most of the class feats, in fact. Each instinct provides several benefits. First, at level 1, your instinct ability. At level 7, your specialization ability. At level 9, you get your raging resistance. And level 7 also includes a boost that happens at level 15. These benefits grant bonuses of similar focus for each instinct, but they do help you with different play styles a little bit here and there. We're not going to go into every feat that requires the given subclass, but there are different feats, and I'll kind of give a hint as to what kind of feats you might get for the different subclasses and even give one example. All right, let's jump into the instincts so you can figure out what type of barbarian might fit you best. Alphabetically, because that's just the way that they're in Archives of Nethys. Animal. This is your unarmed subclass. So at level 1, you have to choose an animal that you feel connected to. There's a list. It's pretty long now because there's the Player Core 2 list and then the Howl of the Wild added more. When you go into a rage, you gain the unarmed attacks associated with that creature, also in the list. There's a wide variety of what you can be looking for here, but one example is, let's say you chose the deer, you'll get a D10 piercing horn attack with the grapple trait, which is already a very strong attack, by the way, to have a grapple trait. So there's weapons that aren't nearly that good. Or you could say be a spider, where you can get a D8 piercing bite attack with grapple and a venomous attack, grapple and venomous, as well as a ranged attack that fires webs at your enemy. It's a very versatile instinct, but once you choose your animal, there isn't any option of going back. So you don't just get to wake up every day and be like, haha, what's my animal today? At level 7, your specialization ability, the size of the damage dice for your unarmed attack that you took as part of the instinct increases. So that deer's D10 becomes a D12, which is really strong. Your rage bonus now goes from 2 to +5 whenever you hit with an attack. And then at level 15, it'll go from 5 to 12. This is actually on the very low end of damage bonuses. So even though your die can be really good and you can get some great attacks, just keep in mind your rage bonus is going to be lower than other subclasses. Your resistance is to piercing and slashing damage. Very, very common types of damage. So amazing raging resistance. One example of a feat is at level 8, there's Animalistic Brutality, where you can add one of a set of different weapon traits to your granted unarmed attacks, which grants you all new versatility. So having grapple, for instance, on your antlers is great, but you might also get forceful or sweep or other traits that you could throw on there to make your unarmed strike even more versatile, which then allows you to use any potency runes you have. Any bonuses from those will add to your unarmed traits. So keep that in mind. Those weapon traits can be great. Dragon. This is all about emulating a dragon. At level 1, you choose one of 8 dragons from the remaster that is your kind of patron in a way. And you get already at level 1, increase your rage bonus damage from 2 to 4. And the type is no longer your weapon type of damage. Now the type of damage from your rage bonus is whatever is associated with your dragon. So if your dragon, say, has force as its damage type for its breath attack, this is now for force damage from your raging strikes. At level 7, your specialization ability is that your damage goes from 4 to 8 for your rage bonus. And then at level 15, it'll get all the way up to 16, which is the second highest of any of the subclasses for Barbarian. Level 9, your raging resistance, you get piercing, already we know is really good because it's common, as well as whatever your dragon's breath type was. So again, if you had force, then you'd have resistance to force now. A good example of a feat is at level 6, Dragon's Rage Breath. Once per 10 minutes, which would probably be about once a fight, unless you're getting the fights coming at you quickly, you can exhale a 30-foot cone, which is large, of damage of the same type as your dragon breath. So again, if force is the dragon you emulate, this is force damage. The damage dealt is a number of d6s equal to your level. So at level 6, that is 6d6. This is almost on par with keeping up with Fireball from a spellcaster. And they get creatures get a reflex save against your class DC. Elemental. This is really the energy subclass. So if you really want to play with energy, this is the way you go. At level 1, you choose one of the 6 elemental types. This came out with Rage of Elements. While raging, you gain concealment against ranged attacks, which is strong. So they have to roll a flat check just to target you. Your rage damage goes from 2 to 4, just like Dragon did, and the type matches one of the types associated with your element. So for instance, air has both, slashing and electricity, I think. Any kinetic impulses that you happen to have of the same element type gain the rage trait. They want you to be able to multi-class or free archetype with the kineticist class and still be able to do things while raging. So they built it in here together. It's a very cool option. At level 7, your damage goes from 4 to 6. So not quite the 8 that it did for Dragon, but still solid. And then at level 15, you'll get up to 12, tying with the animal for the lowest. At level 9, your raging resistance is creatures, attacks, and abilities of the same element you chose. So if basically anything coming at you that matches the element you chose in any way, you've got resistance to that damage. An example of a feat. Since we talked about the dragon one, we'll choose one similar to that. At level 6, Elemental Explosion. Once per rage, so it really is going to be once per combat, or even more often if you lose rage and then have to get it back again. You can explode in a 15-foot emanation, also still very big, dealing 1d8 damage per your level against all creatures with a basic reflex save. And this is, of course, the same type as the element you chose. So very strong AoE, everybody around you. And onto the Fury, which is just the super angry barbarian. At level 1, your bonus damage goes from 2 to 3, so not really a big boost, and you gain an additional level 1 barbarian feat. It's not amazing because the barbarian level 1 feats really aren't blowing anybody's mind, but there are good ones out there, so it could fit your style really well. Level 7, your damage bonus from rage goes from 3 to 7, so not bad. You know, you're doing better than some. And you get up to 13 damage at level 15. So slightly above animal and elemental, not as good as dragon. And the damage that you're doing here, of course, is just your regular weapon type. Your raging resistance, you resist physical weapon damage. Hear what I said, weapon damage. So unarmed strikes, they don't count. You are not going to resist slashing, piercing, or bludgeoning from unarmed strikes, which are very common. Instead, it's just weapon damage, but it's slashing, bludgeoning, and piercing from physical weapons. So there's that. An example of a feat, level 16, going a little higher, Furious Vengeance. When you are critically hit by an enemy that's within melee range of you, you can use a reaction to just make a strike. There's no limit on how often you can do this. If you're getting crit, you can strike back. So that's okay. Giant. This is the huge barbarian. At level 1, you can use weapons meant for large creatures, as long as you're at least medium or small. Now, the rules around this, it's not like they have better damage or anything. They're just meant for larger creatures. So don't think that this is going to somehow give you like a 2d12 weapon instead of 1d12. It doesn't work like that. You do get it for free, this weapon. And while you use it and you're raging, your damage bonus from rage goes from 2 to 6, which is the highest boost we see. But you are clumsy 1 no matter what. There's no way to get rid of it. Clumsy is going to reduce your AC and your reflex saves. Those are probably the biggest downsides for you, but something to keep in mind. Level 7, your damage bonus from rage goes from 6 to 10. Again, you're really hitting the top here with the damage. And at level 15, it gets all the way up to 18. So this is your high rage damage bonus subclass. At level 9, you gain resistance to bludgeoning and either cold, electricity, or fire. You choose when you get it. So a little versatility in there, but you always get bludgeoning, which of course is very common. A good feat, let's go back to level 6 like we did with a couple of the others. Giant's Stature. When you rage, you grow large in size. You increase your reach by 5 feet. And if somehow you weren't clumsy already, you're clumsy 1 now. They don't stack, so you're still just clumsy 1, but just keep that in mind. That reach of 5 feet means a lot. Being large, threatening more squares, this can be really, really powerful. All right, we're getting close. 2 more. Spirit. This is your I'm going to fight the undead subclass. Level 1, your rage bonus goes from 2 to 3. Again, not a lot, but it is spirit damage now, which is very rarely resisted. If you choose to use the spirit damage rather than your normal rage type of damage, all of your attacks act as if they have the ghost touch rune associated with them, which means you can hit incorporeal creatures. That's also really nice. It's like getting an extra weapon rune without having to spend a slot on it. And your attacks become divine and gain the spirit trait. At level 7, your bonus damage goes from 3 to 7, something we've seen before, and then up to 13 at level 15. Keep in mind, this can be spirit damage, so that's nice. Your raging resistance is against void and any damage dealt by undead. So if you're in an undead campaign, this subclass is pure gold. An example of a feat, we're going to go a little higher because I like this one. Level 12, called Spirit's Wrath. It's 1 action. You fire a wisp up to 120 feet away. It uses pretty much your weapon attack for the strike. It's not exactly that. It's calculated a little different, but it should pretty much be that. And you deal 4d8 plus con mod spirit damage on a hit, or of course double on a crit. And if you do crit, it causes the creature to be frightened 1. It gives Barbarian a very interesting, pretty cool, long-ranged attack, which is hard to come by. All right, here we go. The Superstition is our final subclass. This is the I want to kill all the mages subclass. Level 1. Okay, so you can't cast spells or use magic in any way, or you lose your subclass. So keep that in mind. Not that you were going to probably cast spells anyway, but you really can't. You can't even use a staff that has a spell that can cast spells or anything. You do get a +2 to your saves against magic, which doesn't come up as often as you think, but by higher level, it might come up more. Your rage damage goes from 2 to 3, or it's 4 if you're attacking a spellcaster you've witnessed cast a spell. You get to regain hit points equal to the temp HP you gain when you go into a rage. You're not just getting temp HP, you're also healing. But if you would at any point accept magic cast on you, like a teammate healing you, for instance, you become frightened 1 until your rage ends, and there's no way to get rid of it. Level 7, your damage goes from 3 to 7 or 8 against a caster, like we talked about before. And then at level 15, it's either 13 or 16 against a spellcaster you've seen cast a spell. Your raging resistance is that you resist spell damage from 2 different traditions. Now, they come in pairs. There's 4 sets. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. They're on screen right now, so just go with me there. A sample feat is Mage Hunter, level 6. For 2 actions, you attack a creature that you have seen cast a spell. On a hit, you not only deal damage, you also stupefy the creature 1 or 2 on a crit until the start of your next turn. Not a long duration, but maybe there's something there. Okay, so I covered some of the feats while we went through that. Fantastic. I want to cover the rest of the level 1 feats, though, just to give you an idea of what level 1 looks like for the Barbarian, and I'll even throw in a few higher level feats at the very end for fun. All right, so what do our level 1 feats look like? Well, we've got Acute Vision. This is a passive bonus. While you're raging, you have Dark Vision. Boom, straight up. Now, there's a lot of ways to get Dark Vision, so maybe it's not the most impactful, but it can be useful. Adrenaline Rush. This is also passive. While raging, it increases the bulk you can carry by 2, and you get a +1 to your athletics checks to lift, force open, or escape. The escape's particularly nice. A lot of the other stuff in here probably not going to be the most important. Draconic Arrogance. Now, this does require that you took the Dragon subclass, but it's also passive. You gain a +2 status bonus to saves against mental effects while you're raging. So if you're worried about getting feared for any reason, this is how you avoid that. All right, Moment of Clarity, 1 action. You can use concentrate actions this turn. So if you start your turn and you say, boom, Moment of Clarity, suddenly anything with a concentrate trait, which you normally can't use while raging, you now can. Raging Intimidation, and now we're getting into some of my favorite level 1 feats. It's passive. You can demoralize and scare to death, which is a high level skill feat, while raging. Normally you can't do those because Rage doesn't allow you to take those actions. Also, you get Intimidating Glare, which is a skill feat, and Scare to Death, the high level skill feat, for free as long as you meet the requirements. So at level 1, you can get Intimidating Glare for free and the ability to demoralize by taking this 1 feat. Raging Thrower, passive. Your thrown attacks get rage damage added. So normally any ranged attack, including thrown, wouldn't get your rage bonus. This is how you get it there. So if you're going to go with any type of thrown barbarian, this is necessary. And finally, Sudden Charge. This is 2 actions. You stride twice, and as long as you ended that second stride within melee range of an enemy, you just get to attack. So it's 3 actions for the cost of 2. Very efficient. It's kind of the bread and butter, I think, for early barbarians. Let's look a little further ahead. Level 8, and I'm going to keep these general to any barbarian, none of the subclasses. Friendly Toss, 2 actions. You get to toss an ally anywhere within 30 feet. They land on their feet, good to go. The movement from them doesn't trigger reactions. So this is, hey Gimli, I'm throwing you over there. Level 12, Furious Grab. This is 1 action. If your last strike hit a creature and you have a hand free or your weapon has the grapple trait, no check, no save, you simply, bam, grab them. This is really strong because normally grab is an attack action. You've got the multiple attack penalty and you have to deal with rolls. Nope. Did you hit them and you meet the requirements? Boom, grabbed. This is so powerful for grapple builds. All right, and we'll throw a level 20 at you. Quaking Stomp, one action. You can create the effects of the Earthquake spell. That's right, you stomp so hard, you can just knock down buildings. Is this powerful? Not really, but it's very cool and it'd be fun to do just to see it happen. So as you can see, we look at the feats, there's a lot about getting around rage restrictions or adding new ways to utilize rage. So lots of building around rage, and you'll see that throughout the entire class. If you're building a level 1 character and you want it to be easy to navigate, I really suggest taking Sudden Charge as a feat. It just makes everything you do early on much, much simpler because you will have to get up to enemies. This helps you cover that and get an attack in and leaves you one action to spare on your turn. As for your instinct, I suggest avoiding animal just because there's a lot of unarmed choices to make there, and it can be hard to choose what's going to work well for you. And then grapple builds aren't always the easiest to figure out right away in the game, but they are very strong. And I'd avoid giant just because you have to deal with always remembering that you have clumsy 1, even though I think a lot of people would suggest giant just because it hits so hard. I think dragon or elemental are both pretty good. I think those are probably, spirit's also actually really solid. You just have to keep in mind how spirit damage flows, but all those are going to feel like pretty good choices. Most builds for the Barbarian will look similar, but I'll give a few options. So let's say you want to go with a two-handed weapon or dual wield build. Strength, con, dex, wisdom, charisma, int, in that order is really going to be your best go-to here. You want that con because you're going to get hit. Probably only need 1 dex because you can throw on some medium armor that'll cover it. And then wisdom for a little better perception. When we look at throne builds, you're going to want dex and con to swap. And this is really because you're still going to have to rely on your dex for your accuracy when you throw your weapons, which is unfortunate, but it is necessary, even if you're not using finesse weapons. So no matter what, if you're throwing it, it takes dex. And finally, intimidation builds. So these are specifically those builds that want to lean into the ability to demoralize or scare to death that you get with that first feat. So this is strength with charisma as a secondary, and then dex and con. So you're really just dropping your wisdom here along with your int. But this can be really great. This can give you a very different feel to a barbarian. All right, let's build a level 1 barbarian real quick and then do a little combat. So what's the build going to be? I'm going to use a dragon instinct, and we're going to do the intimidation build I talked about. So what are my weapons? I'm going to take a great axe, very thematic, and I'm going to grab a couple javelins in case I need to throw something. Level 1, I'm going to take chainmail because fantastic with chainmail on. I can get my AC max up to 18, which are where I want it to be. For skills, I want to have intimidation, necessary for my design here, diplomacy, and medicine. You'll have athletics anyway because you're a barbarian. My stats are going to be +4 in strength, 3 in charisma, 1 in con, and 1 in dex. And finally, class feats. At least take raging intimidation if you're going to go with the intimidation build, or else what are you doing? Because you can't even do it. And on top of that, you're going to want sudden charge like I recommended. For this build, I'm going to say we're human, so we're going to take both. With human, you can actually manage to take both at level 1. So let's show off a little bit of barbarian gameplay. All right, it's round 1 here. We've got our ally here being flanked by 2 dream spiders. We just kind of came across what was going on here. We heard them and came over. Sure enough, this isn't great. Now, what these dream spiders were doing, I don't know, hiding in the woodwork, I suppose. Sure, we'll go with that. We roll initiative, as do the other creatures. But thanks to the remaster, as we roll initiative, we enter rage. So we're already in a rage for the combat. And we end up going second. Our perception isn't that high, and our wisdom's dumped. One of the spiders manages to bite our ally, who is now not doing well because these bites hurt. The spider went and made 3 straight attacks and managed 2 to land. So our ally is really low on hit points, but did not manage to get poisoned. It is now our turn. Given how far away we are, we look at our different directions here. With obstacles in the way, it'll actually take us 35 feet of movement to get into a flanking position to attack the one spider that hasn't gone yet and didn't scurry away. However, we are still within 30 feet of the spider itself, which means we can demoralize it. So, because we're in an intimidation build, we're going to use our first action to demoralize the spider. which normally would have a -4 penalty because we wouldn't share a language. But thanks to Raging Intimidation, giving us the free skill feat, we don't have that problem. So no penalty to our chance to intimidate, and boom, we beat the spider's DC, and it is frightened 1. We then use sudden charge to rush up, taking 2 strides, ending behind the spider in a flanking position, and we strike. Thanks to the -1 from being frightened and the -2 from it being flanked, we critically hit the spider with our rage damage. So we're going to roll, and we get a 7 with our axe, +4 bonus damage from strength, +4 bonus damage from our subclass, which in this case is force damage. And boom, that's a total of 15. We double that. That is 30 damage with our critical strike. Yes, in 1 strike at level 1, which easily dispatches the spider. Our friend then takes his turn, drinks a health potion, so pulls one out of the bag, drinks it, and gets as far away as he can from the remaining spider. Round 2, the spider fires its webbing at us, so both us and the ally. We are hit and we are immobilized. Thanks to our very solid fortitude saving throw, though, we are not poisoned. Our ally is not as lucky. Fails the save and is webbed, so immobilized and stupefied 1. With its final action, the spider is going to make its way toward our ally, not toward us, hoping to go finish it off. But not on our watch. We use our first action to attempt to escape the webbing. We have a massive +7 to athletics, so the escape roll is not that hard for us to make, and sure enough, we get out. So we've already used 1 action. We've got 2 left and got some distance to cover. We can sudden charge again, and thanks to sudden charge, we are going to cover the distance and attack. We do have multiple attack penalty because escaping does have the attack trait, so that's unfortunate, but even with that, we are just able to get a strike in, and this time we got a 6 on our roll, so that is a 14 total damage, which is still a lot, leaving the spider barely alive. Our ally takes this opportunity to just try to toss a bomb at the spider. It misses the spider, but thanks to splash damage, it manages to hurt the spider, and sure, we'll take 1 damage as well, but 1 to each of us, that's enough to finish off the spider, and yes, our ally gets to slay the beast. All right, so there's just a decent idea of what a level 1 combat might look like for a barbarian. As far as pop culture examples, I think there are some straightforward ones, many of which are popping into your head already, but we've got things like Hulk. You can look at Gimli this way if you want to. I think that's very reasonable. Grog, if you're a Vox Machina fan, it's a little bit cheating because that's from 5e, but still, I'm going to count it. You could even think of somebody like Fezzik this way if rage is very mild. If you don't know who Fezzik is, I'm sorry. Please go watch The Princess Bride. And there we have it. There's your guide to the Barbarian. Hopefully this will help you build a level 1 Barbarian. I know I love playing Barbarians. I'm going to go play a Dragon Barbarian in the next game that I play. And as always, adventure on.